The Last Loaves, Episode 4, Unusual Days. Another sleepless night, and the ground won't stop doing this weird. There it goes again. Just little tremors, nothing serious. Uncle says it's been happening more often lately, but we've had earthquakes before. Let me tell you about the past few days. September 28th. The day I realized being in love makes you notice everything differently, including things that should probably worry you more than they do. September 28th, 79 CE. Dear Diary, it's been 5 days since the festival, and I swear everything in the world looks different now. The sunrise seems brighter, the bread smells better. Even Uncle's dramatic pronouncements about the sacred art of baking seem charming instead of ridiculous. I am definitely completely hopelessly in love. Livia has come by the bakery 3 more times since festival night. Officially, she's still learning about bread making. Unofficially, well, let's just say we've spent as much time talking and laughing as we have kneading dough. Yesterday she brought some of her father's best wine, a smooth vintage from their vineyard near Nuceria, and we shared it while waiting for a batch of honey bread to finish baking. We sat close together on the stools near the ovens, her shoulder touching mine, talking about everything and nothing. "Tell me something about yourself that no one else knows," she said at one point, wine making her eyes sparkle in the firelight. I thought about it seriously. Sometimes, when I'm kneading dough late at night and the bakery is quiet, I pretend I'm not just making bread. I pretend I'm creating something. I don't know, something that will make people's lives a little better, like the bread carries good wishes with it when it leaves here. She didn't laugh. Instead, she looked at me with this expression that made my heart do that skippy thing again. "That's not silly at all," she said softly. "I think food does carry the intentions of the person who makes it. I've always believed that." Then she told me her secret, that sometimes she talks to the wine while it's aging, telling it stories about the people who will eventually drink it, hoping it will bring them joy. We're both ridiculous, and somehow that makes it perfect. But it's not just the romance that's making everything seem different. The past few days have been genuinely strange in other ways too. First, there are the tremors. They started the day after the festival, just tiny shakes that make the hanging oil lamps sway slightly. Nothing dramatic, just persistent. Every few hours, the ground gives a little shiver, like it's trying to settle more comfortably. "Probably aftershocks from that earthquake in Neapolis last month," Uncle said when I mentioned it. "These things ripple outward sometimes." That made sense, I supposed. We had a major earthquake here about 17 years ago. I was just a baby then, but Uncle remembers it well. Damaged a lot of buildings, including the big theater and several temples. Most of the repairs were finished years ago, but maybe the ground is still settling. Still, the frequency is odd. I've been keeping track without really meaning to. We get a tremor about every 6 hours, sometimes more often. Nothing strong enough to knock anything over, but consistent enough that you start to notice. The animals have noticed too, which is the second strange thing. Our neighbor's dog, Brutus, normally the laziest creature in Pompeii, has been pacing restlessly for days. He whines at nothing, refuses to go near his usual sleeping spot by the fountain, and keeps trying to get into his master's house. Yesterday I saw him digging frantically in the garden, as if trying to burrow underground. The pigeons that usually roost on our roof have disappeared entirely. One day they were there, cooing and making their usual mess. The next day they were gone. Even Aunt Claudia noticed. "Where have all the birds gone?" she asked yesterday morning, looking up at the empty eaves. "Maybe they flew south early," I suggested. It has been unusually warm lately. But it's not just the heat. The air itself feels different. Thicker somehow, with an odd smell that comes and goes. Not unpleasant exactly, but strange. Sulphurous, like rotten eggs mixed with something metallic. Titus mentioned it too. "Do you smell that?" he asked while we were working yesterday. "It's like when you strike flint against steel, but stronger." I'd noticed it, but hadn't wanted to say anything. It seems to be strongest in the mornings, then fades as the day warms up. "Probably just the harbor," I told him. "You know how it gets when the wind shifts." But honestly, I've lived here my whole life, and I've never smelled anything quite like this from the harbor. The third strange thing is that people are talking more. Not about the tremors or the missing birds or the odd smells. Everyone seems to be ignoring those, just like we are. But there's definitely more chatter than usual, more speculation, more nervous energy in the markets. Yesterday at the forum, I overheard two merchants discussing whether they should move their stored grain to higher ground, just in case. When I asked them in case of what, they couldn't give me a clear answer. Just feels like we should be prepared, one of them said with a shrug. Prepared for what, exactly? No one seems to know. But despite all the oddities, the past few days have been wonderful on a personal level. Not just because of Livia, though she's certainly the bright spot, but because of how well everything at the bakery is going. Titus has transformed from disaster-prone apprentice to genuinely useful helper in just 2 weeks. He can now knead dough properly, shape basic loaves, tend the ovens without burning anything, and even handle customers when Uncle and I are busy. Yesterday, he sold 3 dozen rolls to a group of travelers without any supervision at all. "You're a good teacher," Uncle told me as we watched Titus efficiently pack bread for a customer. "Patient but firm. The boy has learned more in 2 weeks than some apprentices learn in 2 months." I felt proud hearing that. Teaching really does help you understand your own skills better. "He's motivated," I replied, "and he actually listens." "Unlike someone I know when he first started here," Uncle said with a pointed look. Fair enough. I was pretty stubborn when I first arrived. The bakery business itself is booming. Word seems to have spread about our festival bread, and we've been getting orders for special occasions from households we've never served before. Yesterday, a slave from one of the big villas near the theater came to order 5 dozen honey rolls for a dinner party. "My master specifically requested bread from the gayest bakery," the slave said. "He heard your festival loaves were exceptional." Uncle practically glowed for the rest of the day. "We're even talking about expanding our regular production. There's definitely demand for more variety, maybe some of those flat breads they make in the eastern provinces or sweet pastries with nuts and dried fruit. Uncle has connections with spice merchants who could supply ingredients. We could be the premier bakery in this part of Campania," Uncle said during one of his grander moments yesterday. "People would travel from Nuceria just to buy our bread." For once, his dramatic vision doesn't seem entirely unrealistic. Livia and I have started talking about the future too, in careful, roundabout ways that don't assume too much, but still hint at possibilities. She mentioned yesterday that her father might be interested in expanding his wine business, maybe opening a tavern that serves good food alongside good wine. "A place that serves exceptional bread along with exceptional wine could do very well," she said, not quite looking at me directly. My heart did several skippy things in rapid succession. "That sounds like a wonderful business model," I replied, also not looking directly at her. "Someone would need to supply the bread, of course," she continued, examining a honey roll with great interest. "Someone reliable, with high standards and good recipes." "Of course," I agreed, fighting back a huge grin. "That someone would need to be very committed to quality. And probably willing to work closely with the wine merchant's family," she added, still studying that roll like it contained the secrets of the universe. "Very closely," I confirmed. Then we both burst into laughter because we were being so ridiculously obvious about it. But the conversation made me realize something important. I can actually see a future with her. Not just romantic daydreams, but practical possibilities. Our families' businesses could complement each other perfectly. We could build something together. It's terrifying and exciting at the same time. Of course, I'm probably getting way ahead of myself. We've known each other for less than 2 weeks. But there's something about her that feels right. Natural. Like we fit together in a way that makes sense. I've never felt anything like this before, and I never want it to end. Though I do wish these tremors would stop. They're not scary exactly, but they're persistent and annoying. Just when you start to forget about them, the ground does that little shiver again. Titus asked me this morning if I thought they meant anything serious. "Uncle says they're just aftershocks," I told him. "The ground settling after that earthquake near Neapolis." "But that was weeks ago," Titus pointed out. "Shouldn't aftershocks be getting weaker, not more frequent?" He had a good point, but I didn't want to worry him. "Maybe there's construction going on somewhere nearby," I suggested. Heavy carts, foundation work for new buildings. That can cause vibrations. Titus seemed satisfied with that explanation, and honestly, it could be true. There's always construction happening somewhere in Pompeii. As I write this, I can hear another one of those mild tremors making the pottery rattle softly in the kitchen. It's becoming such a regular occurrence that I barely notice anymore. Everyone else seems to have adapted to them too. Life goes on normally, markets, business, daily routines. If there were anything serious to worry about, surely someone in authority would say something. The city officials must know what they're doing. Tomorrow Livia is coming by again, and I'm going to teach her how to make the honey bread that sells so well. She's excited about learning the technique, and I'm excited about any excuse to spend more time with her. Life is good, strange in small ways maybe, but fundamentally good. What could possibly go wrong? What could possibly go wrong? Gods, I asked that question twice in 2 weeks. I was like a man walking toward a cliff while staring at the beautiful sunset behind him. Those tremors. We got so used to them that they just became part of daily life, like the sound of carts on cobblestones or dogs barking in the distance. The signs were all there, the tremors, the changes in air quality, the animals behaving strangely, but we explained them all away. Each one had a perfectly reasonable explanation. Humans are remarkably good at adapting to things that should alarm them, as long as the changes happen gradually. It's only in hindsight that you realize you were living through the warning phase of a disaster. But I was so happy then, so completely, blissfully happy. For a few precious weeks, everything was perfect.
End of episode 4.
Next time on The Last Loaves, Love and Loaves, Marcus and Livia's relationship deepens as they make plans for the future, but the tremors are getting stronger and more frequent. Why are all the wells in the neighborhood starting to run dry?